Well, it's your boy Darius. I want to thank you guys for watching. You guys could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with me, and I really appreciate that. Make sure to subscribe to your boy, leave a like if you guys have any recommendations, leave in the comment section. I get to it as soon as possible. What about I do right now? About react to Jonny Arnett, the 25 greatest player of all time, peak only. This is Jonny Arnett, his opinion, and this is his list, so we're gonna be respectful toward his list. But I will say this: Jonny Arnett is like one of my favorite basketball YouTuber because how highly knowledgeable he is, and not only that, you know what I'm saying, he doesn't just suck off like one player or another like Jimmy Highwaller does with LeBron James. You know what I'm saying? You know, Jonny Arnett, I feel like he's the most fair and he's the most logical one of all time. So and I still feel like he'll put him higher. He'll put LeBron higher than Kobe, and that's fine too. But my personal opinion, I'll still put Kobe over LeBron. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, this is Jonny Arnett list. I know it's gonna be high logical on this list. So enough of the blah blah blah. Let's check out what he had to say. Ooh, Kobe, man, that never gets old, yo. Like this. Look at LeBron and look at Curry, man. MJ, man, the true GOAT right here. I don't care what anyone say. Michael Jordan should always be number one. Unless you're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
If you look online, you can find plenty of lists ranking the greatest players of all time.
Yes.
And of course, there's a lot of nuance to factor in on each list. Some players had the luxury of longer, healthy careers, while
like
others
LeBron.
weren't as fortunate, which naturally affected their rankings and their statistics. But what if we disregarded all of that and simply evaluated players based on their peak?
Yes.
Who was the best when they were at their best?
Yes.
Obviously, this is a very subjective video, as there is no definitively perfect list, as much as many of you would like to think it's yours.
And yeah, that's exactly right. Like, no list is a perfect list. You get what I'm saying? I know if I have my own list, not like people would disagree with it, and that's perfectly fine. But as long as it is reasonable, you know what I'm saying? As long as it's reasonable, as long as your argument is reasonable, then there's no need to like to bash somebody just for their list. Unlike Rolling Stone, their lists are not reasonable at all. But should this video go into my Dawson Opinion channel? I feel like it should.
That being said, this is just my list of my very finite mind. Let me know in the comments who you think is too high and who's too low. For a basis to start with, I'll be looking at what I think is the best 3-year stretch from each player, and build my rankings from there. Playoff success isn't the only factor or the ultimate factor, but it can certainly help. So let's get into it. Number 25, Karl Malone.
I feel like it should be higher, but okay.
Fame was his consistency over a long period of time.
Like he won 2 MVPs, you know, like from 97 to 99. So I feel like it should be a little higher. I feel like people do not like Karl Malone. I guess because he had a baby with a 13-year-old, which is messed up. But leave that aside. You know, he talk about strictly on him as a player. You know what I'm saying? He was a credible player.
Why he's currently 3rd on the NBA's all-time scoring list. But beyond that, his peak was incredibly strong as well, as Malone is the only player in the 90s other than Michael Jordan to have a season where he averaged...
Hopefully it's just one player and not just... I hope it's just one player per list and not just like multiple player a list.
An all-time great scorer, but he was a solid and formidable defender as well. He wasn't without his flaws, as the mailman was consistently among the league leaders in turnovers per game.
He was.
Regardless, at his peak, he was among the select few greatest power forwards of all time.
He was.
Number 24, Allen Iverson.
I'm glad you included AI. That's my boy.
Was an absolute force, as he carried his 76ers offensively and still found time to be a solid facilitator.
I feel like he should be higher too. AI.
Describe Iverson as a good on-ball defender.
Ooh, doing that to Tim Duncan.
He was regularly among the league leaders in steals per game. His only major weakness was the fact that he was a volume shooter who would occasionally show up cold and shoot his way through very efficient nights.
Yeah, that's true.
Number 23, David Robinson. Simply
put, he was great.
The Admiral was one of the greatest two-way players that the game has ever seen, as he was an anchor defensively around the rim.
Never been a fan of Spurs player.
Leading the NBA in scoring. Very few players.
Yeah, 11.2 rebounds, so that's dope.
Athleticism. Not only that, but he had an extremely soft touch as a mid-range jump shooter, so defenders couldn't give him too much space. Number 22, Dwyane Wade. At his peak, Wade was one of the greatest slashers that the game has ever seen.
He was.
Not only would he often dunk over the top of centers, but he also had one of the best layup packages ever, as he would regularly hit shots while being extremely off balance.
That's true.
A rarely mentioned aspect of his game is that Wade is arguably the best shot-blocking guard of all time. Michael Jordan may have a thing or two to say about that, but the argument is definitely between these two players. Number 21, Kevin Garnett. I think many people forget just how good KG was.
He was excellent.
Not only was he a tenacious defensive
he won the MVP,
leader,
right?
Offensively, he did just about everything for his team, as he's one of only 5 players to lead his team over the course of a season in every major stat category. Honestly, most people probably picture the big ticket in a Celtics jersey, but Garnett in Minnesota was truly something else. Number 20, Charles Barkley.
Okay, that's
Charles
fair.
Barkley in his prime was a freakish blend of strength, power, quickness, and athleticism. Not only could he score and rebound with the best of them, but Chuck was also the standard of efficiency in the 90s, as he was shooting consistently.
He won an MVP too in 1993. See, a lot of people give Charles Barkley crap because he never won an NBA final, but it wasn't from lack of trying. Charles Barkley was truly the man.
60% from the field during his prime. And that was with his nasty habit of shooting too many three-pointers, which he was awful at. Chuck's prime could have been longer if he just kept a better handle on his weight. But if we're talking specifically around his best 3-year stretch, well then there's very few players
that's why I put Karl Malone over Charles Barkley, because Charles Barkley, he was great, you know what I'm saying? But he wasn't great for so long, while Karl Malone, he was greater for like a longer period of time. That's why I put Karl Malone over Charles Barkley, but that's just my opinion.
Number 19, Jerry West.
Jerry West should be much higher.
Logo for a reason, and his nickname is Mr. Clutch for a reason too.
Yep.
He has the 3rd highest scoring average in NBA.
He was one of the best two-way players.
He was very ahead of his time.
Combo guard.
He would regularly score from the perimeter with his smooth jump shot before the three-point line was even implemented.
Yeah.
At his peak, he was shooting a little below 50%. Which is solid for a volume shooting guard by today's standards.
Yeah.
But back then, when field goal percentages were generally much lower, that was basically unheard of.
Exactly. That's why I would put Jerry West higher.
Stats when he played, because West was almost certainly the best perimeter defender during his era, regularly stealing, blocking, and frustrating the offensive player. When you think of the greatest two-way players of all time,
Jerry West,
always remember to include the logo.
Yes.
Number 18, Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant was incredible, but I'm not sure if I'll rank him over Jerry West, but
Lethal weapon in this league, but long ago was his peak in OKC, where he was leading the league in scoring while consistently.
I think him going to the Warriors damage his
to guard, as he has
damage how he gonna look in NBA.
Point for a 7-foot shot.
Even though he won 2 rings.
Number 17, TRACY McGrady. During his peak, it was a legitimate debate as to who was the better player.
See, this is why I like Jonny Arnett. This is why I like him, because he will include players. Who a lot of people would not think of, like TRACY McGrady. And he would include them on the list like this. That's why I'll put TRACY McGrady over Damian Lillard in my top 75. Matter of fact, I would put Tony Parker over Damian Lillard. I don't even know why Damian Lillard made the damn list.
Kobe Bryant. Before the back injuries, McGrady was one of the most skilled and athletically gifted players that we had ever seen. He should have had more postseason success in his prime.
He did, but he didn't. That's what hindered his success.
Since his running mate, Grant Hill, was consistently recovering from injuries. Although Tracy was never recognized as a great on-ball defender, he was certainly a solid help.
I think that's another thing. He wasn't a great defender as well.
Were among the league leaders for wing players. Number 16, Bill Russell.
Bill Russell should be way higher when you talk about. I guess individually, I always say individually as a player, he may not be the best. He may not be the best player, but if we talk about like his accomplishment, he is definitely one of the GOATs.
Much higher on my
I still feel like he should be a little higher though.
Peak list, and it makes sense to me given how Russell's main claim to fame is his consistent championship success.
Yes,
Bill was obviously one of the great defenders and rebounders of all time.
Yes, that is
fact.
fact.
What holds him back on this list is how he was somewhat limited offensively, as he averaged just 18 points on 45% shooting from the field as a center. That's not necessarily bad, but when we're speaking relatively to the greatest peaks of NBA history, it certainly helps to be a player who can carry a team offensively, which is something that Russell never had to do even in his prime years.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that because Russ, he didn't have to. He had to. If you had players like John Havlicek and Tommy Heinsohn and Bob Cousy on your team, then I get they're not much point where you can like focus too much on your offense. Of course, it would be great to have like a great offensive game and defensive game, but
number 15.
Wow.
Duncan. The big fundamental.
Wow, Tim Duncan.
Consistency.
I never been a big fan of Tim Duncan.
Wasn't too shabby.
Tim Duncan is like a silent fart. You know what I'm saying? That one person where it's like silent but deadly. You get what I'm saying?
Either, as it includes an NBA championship
and the fact that he always so humble. That's what irritates me. I like just of course I don't like too much cockiness, obviously, but I like a little bit of cockiness. I like people to talk trash. You know what I'm saying? He just yeah. It's like come on, react,
MVP specifically.
But you can't deny he is one of the best power forward, if not the best.
In 2003,
you got a wrist tattoo though. That's so lame.
Dominated the New Jersey Nets in just about every way that a big man can. Although his regular season numbers were solid over that 3-year stretch, they're not necessarily the most mind-blowing compared to the 14 players ahead of him, which is what holds him back somewhat despite his defensive prowess and postseason success. Number 14.
Wow.
Baylor.
Okay. I can see you argue Andrew Baylor over Jerry West.
He dominated the game like a big man, as he sometimes posted stat lines that even rivaled Wilt Chamberlain. For a player his size or smaller, he was arguably the greatest rebounder the game had ever seen.
He helped save the Lakers franchise by leading them to the NBA Finals.
You do need to take into account that scoring numbers and rebounding totals were significantly more inflated during this era. As the pace of play was extremely fast, players played more minutes, and field goal percentages were typically lower, adding to the amount of boards for him to secure. Regardless, he was one of the best talents and deserved to be high on this list.
Yes, he does.
Number 13.
Moses!
Malone.
Moses!
Of the centers that are rarely talked about, Moses is definitely the greatest.
I love playing Moses Malone in 2K, man. He is so fun to play. You know what I'm saying? He grabbed the rebound, he can block shots and everything. He is so fun to play.
He crushed his opponents on the boards, and even more impressively on the offensive.
He won 3 MVPs that you don't do no time, right?
MVP and won the NBA championship with the 76ers.
He did.
He was a solid defender compared.
And he led the Houston Rockets to the NBA Finals in 1981. Which they lost to the Boston Celtics, but still.
The league, but compared to the peaks of the centers ahead of him, he left a bit to be desired, as he didn't have the athleticism to block as many shots as several other greats.
Well, he blocked his shots down for me in 2K, so
he did better than anyone else, which is enough to put him this high on my list. Number 12.
Wow, John is so high already?
This may seem high to some, but when you look at his recent 3-year body of work, there is very little.
Like 2020, 19,
he won
2001?
MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, and an NBA championship while putting up one of the all-time great finals performances. When you look at the combination of his scoring and rebounding, he put up numbers that we hadn't seen consistently since Moses Malone in the 1970s.
That's true.
Along with everything I previously mentioned, he's also insanely efficient from the field. Of course, there are his usual criticisms about his inefficient shooting from three-point range and from the free throw line.
Of course.
If Giannis could do those things efficiently as well, then we'd probably be looking at a top 3 peak instead of a top 12. With that being said, I'm very comfortable with this location for the Greek Freak.
Okay.
Number 11.
Oscar Robertson.
This 6'5" point guard is yet another great who benefited from an era of inflated statistics. But even
but hey, you know, you can't even blame them for like playing the era that they play in. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? No matter what era you play, you have to be great no matter what. So of course you're gonna take a finish.
The fact that this man averaged a triple-double for basically the entirety of his prime. Oscar did just about everything for the Cincinnati.
The way he
Royals
just spread his leg and just grabbed the ball, that looks so dope.
Of point guards, as he wasn't very flashy, but he had great fundamentals, was very methodical, and was extremely effective. Now on to the top 10.
Oh, of course, look at Curry, man. If Floyd watching it, he'd be like, "Ooh, look at Curry, man. Ooh, look at Curry." Be all like that. Floyd, you're so gay for Curry.
Warriors legend Steph Curry. If we're looking at single seasons alone, Steph Curry's 15-16 season is top 3 in my opinion, as it was arguably the most offensively efficient season in NBA history.
Offensive efficiency. How about his defense? I think that will lack him in the defense.
His 2015 and 2017 season weren't quite as strong statistically though, which drops him just to the edge of the top 10. Most people recognize that Curry wasn't the greatest on-ball defender in his prime.
Exactly,
he
not.
Anticipated well and found plenty of opportunities to cause turnovers as he was consistently among the league leaders in steals per game. Number 9, Magic Johnson.
Wow, I'll put Magic higher, but okay.
You already know about Magic, as he was a constant triple-double threat and had arguably the greatest coefficient that the game of basketball has ever seen. During Magic's prime, he ran a Showtime Lakers offense that had an incredibly unique style. Nearly every time the Lakers secured the defensive rebound, they treated the possession like a track meet, and it was especially Magic who was pushing that tempo. During this stretch, he led the Lakers to back-to-back championships and was the Finals MVP in 1987. Along with that, he had some of his best postseason performances during that streak, including his game winner over Boston in Game 4 of the '87 Finals. Magic could have been higher on this list, and honestly, on just about every one of my lists, if he had been a much better defensive player, as Magic was basically never known for locking down his opponent. With all things considered, having the 9th greatest peak as basically a one-way player is pretty darn impressive.
It is.
Number 8.
Hakeem!
The Dream is
widely recognized
as the most skilled center to ever play, as his footwork
and Jack is my favorite center.
Driven by smaller guards. At his peak, he was averaging just a few points short of 30 a game. And amazingly, that was his worst end of the court, as Olajuwon was a shot-blocking machine, averaging nearly 4 per game. He was also quick with his hands, which helped him be among the league leaders in steals. One thing that isn't often mentioned about Hakeem is the fact that he's one of the most clutch legends, as he's always shined brightest in the postseason. During this postseason stretch, he dominated every legitimate big man who stood in his path, like David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, and Shaquille O'Neal. His soft touch allowed him to be a relatively reliable free throw shooter as well. Simply put, there was no holes in Hakeem's game. Number 7.
Wow! LeBron is low. That means they put Kobe over there. Okay.
At least 25 points per game for his last 19 seasons straight. By the time his career is done, LeBron will have an argument for the claim of the greatest career in NBA history. Although I don't think this 3-season stretch should be ranked as high, it's certainly incredible to say the least. LeBron put up insane numbers during that stretch, mostly from an efficiency standpoint, as he shot
he was a truly incredible player. You gotta take this 9
years. That's a level of efficiency.
He's a flopper. That's the only thing.
And not wing players who are averaging close to 30 a game. As the anchor of the Big Three Heat, LeBron won back-to-back championships during this stretch, and won both Finals MVPs. He was also the Defensive Player of the Year runner-up in 2013, which many people think he should have won. Number 6, Kobe Bryant.
Wow!
I know. Some of you will say I'm biased towards Kobe Bryant for ranking his peak this high. And to be
shit, I'm buying with Kobe, and honestly, I would have ranked him higher, but okay, let's hear what Jonny Arnett had to say.
Maybe subconsciously I am, but I really just think this peak stretch from
06 and 08, yeah, he was...
Make no
Kobe should have won at least the 06 MVP, but he only won one MVP, which I feel like is not enough. But whatever.
That 06 and 07 squad is a top-picking lottery team if Kobe isn't on it.
That's true. Facts.
The rotation of starters those years included Smush Parker, Kwame Brown, Chris Mim, and Chucky Atkins. The fact that the Mamba was able to lead that group to 46 wins in a tough Western Conference, to me, is one of the all-time great achievements. In 06,
I agree with that.
He averaged 35.4 points per game, which is the second highest guard in league history.
No, WILT,
Some say that he stat padded on a bad team, but I would actually argue
Larry
the
Bird?
opposite. Kobe averaged that many points in spite of the fact that no defenses respected his teammates, and Kobe was facing doubles and triple teams on a nightly basis.
That's true.
Scoring under those circumstances is not
easier. That's why they're over the joke that Kobe doesn't pass.
Far more difficult. Despite regularly achieving scoring feats that we hadn't seen since Wilt Chamberlain, Kobe was still first-team all-defense each and every one of his
That's true.
years.
That's facts.
That two-way aspect to Kobe's prime is simply not appreciated enough.
That's why I would rank him higher.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Wow, Kareem.
The captain is probably most famously known for his bald-headed days as a member of the Los Angeles Lakers.
So,
but a young Kareem in Milwaukee was a completely different beast, as he was putting up astonishing scoring and rebounding numbers. He was also an elite rim protector and was revered for his shot-blocking ability. In 1971, he won the NBA championship as a member of the Bucks, which is widely recognized as one of the greatest teams of all time.
Yeah,
He was named the Finals MVP. He was absurdly efficient during this three-season stretch, and it makes sense since he.
My dad wouldn't say he should have been higher.
Shot of all time, the skyhook. Based on his style, he was one of the more offensively predictable players. But with that being said, there was almost nothing the defender could do to stop it. Number 4.
Larry Bird. Everyone loves Larry Bird. Especially a lot of white folks.
This. But if you ask me,
there
was very little that Larry Legend couldn't do. As he was a lethal shooter, he was an elite facilitator, he was arguably
he won the MVP those 3 years, right?
And he was even a pretty solid defender as well, as he always played with hustle and heart. What's probably the most impressive aspect of his peak, though, was his efficiency numbers. Averaging 50, 40, 90 percentages over the course of one season is historic and impressive. But Larry is the only player on this list who did it over the entire course of his peak. In a sense, you can make a decent argument that Bird is the most efficient all-around scorer that the game has ever had. During his peak, Bird led his Celtics to the NBA Finals twice.
Yeah, he did.
The 1986 Finals, where his Celtics won the NBA championship.
That's like one of the best teams of all time.
Consider that team to be the best that there ever was.
Yeah.
Number 3.
And the crazy part is the fact that Michael Jordan dropped 63 points onto that team. That says a lot about him.
Wilt Chamberlain.
Wow, I thought Wilt Chamberlain was number 2.
Stats alone, Wilt would easily take the top spot, as his peak numbers are something that have only been rivaled in video games.
Yeah.
For example, how about this stat? In this 3-year peak of Wilt's career, he scored at least 50 points in a remarkable 83 games.
Yes,
the rest of the players on this 25 greatest list combined only had 77 games. The guy scored, rebounded, and blocked shots like no one else ever could. And I could continuously drop numerous stats and facts just to prove that point. Sure, stats were inflated a bit during Wilt's era, but they weren't that inflated. Much of what he accomplished was due to his incredible size, strength, speed, stamina, and overall athleticism. The reason why Wilt isn't number 1 on this list is because he simply couldn't replicate that same level of success in the postseason, as his numbers usually dropped off in the playoffs. Of course, a stronger level of competition has something to do with it, but I also think that it had to do with Wilt's ridiculous minutes workload during the regular season. So when the playoffs were finally underway, he was usually pretty gassed at that point. Regardless, based on what he was able to accomplish in his prime, there's just no way I could leave him outside of the top 3 spots. Number 2, Shaquille O'Neal.
Okay.
In his prime years in Los Angeles, Shaq was the perfect blend between strength and athleticism. At times, it felt like I was genuinely watching a monster out there on the court, unfairly dominating.
But also Jonny Arnett is a Lakers fan, so it kind of makes sense.
Hitting the smaller competition. Shaq was such a unique and transcendent force that he completely controlled the way games were played, and even how
the Stephon Marbury, man,
in that era,
and Penny Hardaway.
Conference teams were making off-season acquisitions with the sole intent of slowing Shaq down. In that 3-year run, the Diesel dominated the regular season offensively and defensively while putting up these monstrous numbers. But he's in the number 2 spot not because of his regular season impact, but because of his postseason. Shaq's 3-peat performances in the NBA Finals are simply legendary, as he broke records, and Eastern Conference centers could do nothing to slow him down. Even ones like Dikembe Mutombo, who won the Defensive Player of the Year. Not only was Shaq constantly producing for his team, but his opponents were constantly fouling out in a desperate attempt to slow him down by sending him to the free throw line. In those 3 seasons, Shaq won a scoring title, he was the Defensive Player of the Year runner-up, he won a League MVP award that was nearly unanimous, and he won 3 straight titles and was the Finals MVP each time. Honestly, I doubt I'll see a force like Shaq again at the center position for as long as I live.
I don't think so either.
Michael Jordan.
Obviously.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't want to put Michael Jordan in the #1 spot on this list. I wanted to put someone different for the sake of making this video more interesting, or doing something more controversial for the sake of generating more comments. But after I thoroughly thought it through, I just couldn't justify it. Michael Jordan had the greatest peak in NBA history.
He did.
Because it was basically a flawless 3-year run of success. Over that stretch, Jordan won the league scoring title all 3 seasons. He was first team all-defense all 3 seasons. He won the NBA championship all 3 seasons. He was the finals MVP all 3 seasons. And he broke records in the NBA finals all 3 seasons. You can make an argument
against... See that Jonny Arnett? If we would have taken him outside of a #1, Michael Jordan would have taken personal.
If you want, but personally, I'm not seeing it. So what do you guys think?
That was a good video, actually. You know, like, I don't 100% agree, you know, with the placement and anything. But after hearing Jonny Arnett's explanation, you know, like, it makes perfect sense. That actually was a great video. What do you guys think of the video? Let me know in the comment below. Like, subscribe to your boy. You can check my previous video down here. Peace, love, and rock and roll.